Hi, I'm Gabe.
And I'm Kat.
And we're the Ghouls Next Door. And this is episode 18.
Woo!
We made it pretty far now.
We've made all of the episodes.
All 18 of them.
Are you sick of us now?
No.
Probably.
You will. We're sick. We're a little sick after the experiences we've...
We watched very disturbing movies that made us feel somewhat physically and emotionally sick. All thanks to our special guest.
Yes, we are joined by my good friends and my coworker, Debbie.
Hello.
Hi, Deb.
Sorry.
You're not sorry.
No.
She shared with us quite the experience, and it really... I'm trying to think of how to explain it. It was different. It was new. It really makes you think while still being really uncomfortable. We explored David Cronenberg.
Yep.
Because Deb gets super hype when talking about him and his work.
Hilarious.
Just gets super excited. So we brought her to share that excitement and explain why she loves him and what makes him really unique and why he's a very interesting director in kind of our lifetimes, and kind of explore this body gore horror that we have now discovered. And I thought that I was a fan of gore and have usually said
I'm just
so.
like things uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty, it's kind of my thing. Yeah. Like, eventually, Kat's going to be subjected to Eli Roth, which is one of my favorite directors. And he did things like Hostel and Cabin Fever. So it's just, like, very gory. It's what do they call it?
Realistic, though?
Yeah, I think that's the difference. I think it's gore in the realistic sense, where this is more gore in the uncomfortable and abstract sense.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of it.
It's like, it's gory and weird, but it's because stuff isn't supposed to be that way. We're like, Eli Roth stuff's, it's not supposed to be that way, like, morally.
Yeah, like, you shouldn't do that to
in terms of, like,
people.
what you want to happen, but it's definitely, like, fathomable. Fathomable.
Yes. Words. You're good
Words
at
and
those.
stuff and things. You know how I do.
You're good at it.
Yeah.
So we brought Deb to explain herself.
Why is that your favorite thing?
Why?
Well,
I just need to know.
I was brought up on a lot of mainstream TV. And as a very young child, my first concept of God was a big TV set in the sky, and everybody had their own channel.
That's amazing.
Honest.
That's really cool, actually. Wow.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
So the TV that I was brought up on was pretty lame. You know, a lot of soap operas and sitcoms, but the way that we watched it as a family was to, like, really tear it apart and kind of, like, look beyond the screen, right? So I was just really excited by seeing this kind of movie, you know, where it just turned everything kind of inside out and upside down and made you look at reality and the way things are in the world and media. And this was before, you know, I was inching my way toward working in media.
Yes.
But it was also helping direct me toward, you know, the kind of media that I wanted to be a part of, you know, so it really did help shape me, I think.
Yeah, I mean...
Cronenberg made a lot of movies. And
yes.
They were fun to follow.
Yes, there's a lot. We were like, me and Kat were able to get through... We've watched
three of them? Yeah.
We attempted a fourth. And
that got turned off.
It was about binge
15.
watching. You cannot binge watch.
Oh, no.
It was. I don't even think we were binge watching at that point. I think it was like, that was one of the, we watched the one
eXisteZ last week.
And then I think it was yesterday or the day before where we tried to watch Naked
Lunch.
Naked Lunch. Not Kitchen. That's different. Naked Lunch.
Kitchen would be a different thing.
And yeah, about 10, 15 minutes in, we're like, nah, I can't. Not because it, like, wasn't interesting, but because the specific visuals were just, like, too much.
Yeah.
Where I was just like, I can't
It definitely triggered
handle this.
things.
I need this to go away.
Yeah.
And it's either the TV goes off or I leave. And I just feel it really strongly.
Yes, turn off the TV.
Yeah. Like,
Yes,
I think,
learn.
honestly, it was very
It didn't make
upsetting.
you want to go like write a book.
No,
Get out the typewriter.
Oh my God.
I mean, it made me
get that
not want to watch
far.
TV ever again and instead only read books where
Yes.
I don't have visuals of things like that.
Yeah,
But,
I definitely feel like with Cronenberg, because a lot of, if not most of his movies are made from books. So like thinking of these, like when I'm watching them, I'm just thinking like, what are the plots of these books and how are they described to you in such a complex way that he can turn it into that on screen is really interesting to me. Because I'm just like, it's so just vivid and grotesque. It's like, how do you describe that? And of course, I haven't read Kafka either, so I don't really
the whole
have
bug
a
analogy.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with reading something that does have kind of weird, normalized, like grotesque scenarios, especially with insects.
Yeah, what was interesting I noticed in watching all the films is trying to figure out what their reality is too, because it was always different than ours. I feel like I was like in a Twilight Zone episode where I was like trying to figure out what the normal was so that I could be like, because I was like, I know their normal is not my normal.
Yeah, yes.
I need to know what their normal is so that I can evaluate how strange everything is.
You just described how I felt when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Like,
What is everyone else's normal?
What are they doing? How do I fit in here?
How do I pretend?
Yeah.
It's
and
funny.
then my relationship with my body was like not really, a healthy one. It's kind of like everything kind of grossed me out. Like just not really being okay, with like being in my own skin, and he just like turns that.
He
on
makes
its
all
ear.
skin disgusting.
So then
every skin that's ever
I'm good.
been. Yeah, you're like, oh,
Like, oh no, everybody
I'm okay
is gross.
comparatively.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's gross and
That's
it's
funny.
okay.
Oh my god,
We're gross together. I think it's funny, Kat, that you mentioned their reality, because I was reading like some interviews with David Cronenberg, and there's like a scene in a film. I can't. I'm missing the name right now, but there's like a scene where like a sex scene, and the actress at the time of filmmaking had been. Just gave birth to a child, so she was breastfeeding. And so during the sex scene, he like did something to her breast, and like milk shot out of her breast and like flew across the screen, right? And he was like, it was like the most amazing thing that's ever happened to them. And they were like, this is such a crazy
We
thing.
didn't
and it
even
was,
have to make that happen.
but
It's
then
real.
it was like crazy, right? But then he was like, but we didn't put it in there. And he was like, not because we were censoring it, but because it didn't make any sense in the lore of this world. Like the character wasn't pregnant or breastfeeding or anything like that.
There was no reason for that
there's
to be
no
a
reason
time.
for her to just be spewing out milk. So it was funny because like thinking about how absurd the reality is of like these worlds that he's creating, where there's this man who is essentially like becoming this gun, that his skin and the gun are melding together. That's a reality. That's okay. That's acceptable. But a woman who just spontaneously lactates during a sexual encounter is not allowed. It just breaks the narrative. So I think it's really funny that he has like these rules.
Well, he seems very like staunch in whatever the reality he is that he created. That he's intentional about it, and that like there is a reason for it, and you cannot alter it, because then otherwise it affects like the believability, I guess, of it, which none of it's believable. But
Right.
I guess in terms of the understanding and like cleverness of it, you have to stick to the narrative you put forth.
Yes.
And you cannot stray. But yeah, it was really interesting, like noticing all the different kinds of rules that were in place within like the TV society, and being like, I know none of this. That's why half of the movie, my face is just like, what? And it like adjusts after like 30 minutes, where I'm just like, okay, I guess I kind of get what's normal now, but everything's still really not okay. But like the entire time, if you looked over at me, my face was like,
I couldn't, because my face
what
is
is
like
this?
that, and I couldn't see things. We definitely spent the first 10 minutes and the only 10 minutes we watched of Naked Lunch just like peeking through our fingers. And so it definitely triggered like my trypophobia, which is like the fear of like holes and gashes and just things that kind of
Yeah.
trigger a part in like your like in
Yeah.
deep recesses of your mind where you're like, you should stay away from people if they have open sores.
Oh, you should definitely stay away from Cronenberg.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely a lot of that where it's like,
Because it was
lots
like
of holes.
humans. It was so like there were so many things where it's just like why, and like that's what you want to deal with the TV. Like it wasn't. I was scared. It was just like why
Uncomfortable.
off, turn away. This is not what I need. TV.
Yes.
But then it was also like you couldn't look away.
Well, I
Which I
did
think
like
ties
that
into it,
because
too.
often we'll be watching television and be really numb to like very real things that are going on. So, to be that grossed out by something that's obviously so fake, but it physically makes you cringe,
Yeah.
it's like I feel like it sensitizes me,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, taking real things and making them gross once again.
Thank you, Cronenberg.
50 years later. No, actually, he was in the
Well, he
70s
is-
and 80s. Just kidding. That's not that old.
he's dealing with much more real themes, more psychological thriller, horror later on.
Facts. Yeah, facts. We tell you facts. All the facts. Hear facts. Still facts. About that spooky stuff. Yeah, spooky stuff.
So, we're talking about David Cronenberg, who is a Canadian director from Toronto.
In Canada. Did you know Toronto's in Canada?
Yeah, that's why I said Canadian.
North American.
He's North American. So David Cronenberg is this pioneer of the body horror genre, which is this film genre or horror genre that revolves around grotesque bodily manipulations and then also like body imagery imposed over technology or in places that shouldn't be, so that it causes like people to feel uncomfortable. So it's that there's like anything that makes you weirded out, so infections and other kinds of things, but it's all intertwined to kind of give you this like psychological thrill as well, and makes you think because you're on edge and just kind of traumatized by what you're seeing, but it's also making you think like, why is this happening? Why are you putting me through this? And usually there's a good reason. And that's kind of his main thing. So he kind of got a lot of attention in the first half of his career with this horror and science fiction with films such as Scanners in 1981 and Videodrome, which we'll talk about, from 1983. And then he's since, as Deb was saying before, have moved into different genres, but still keeping that thoughtfulness and like making you criticize what you're watching and really think about how we take in media and how it affects us while also indulging in media. Very ironic.
Yeah.
He's
ironic.
like that. Yeah. Yes.
Ironic, uncomfortable. There's a lot of elements.
Yes. He has also redone The Fly. He takes a lot of books that would have otherwise seemed impossible to put onto the screen and taken that as a challenge and made them into something quite impactful, like Naked Lunch, which is from one of his favorite writers.
William Burroughs.
Something I found that when I was looking into him, because there's a lot of just like interviews with him, and I find he's really level-headed and very interesting, and like people are like, you're really gross, and he's like, no, I'm really fine, like it's just, he's like,
It's a movie.
yeah, he's like,
The movie's gross.
I
I'm
made a
not.
movie, I thought it'd be great, that's just how I feel. And everyone's just like, why are you disgusting? And he's like, wow, I didn't think I was, but okay.
It's kind of like commentary on the world.
Yeah,
That's
maybe you
all,
should
guys.
look.
Right?
But
Your eyes.
something I found
Yes.
interesting was he originally went to school in Toronto for biology, like some other scientific
And he enjoyed
things.
dissecting things.
Yeah, well, yes, he enjoyed dissecting things, but the reason why he didn't continue to pursue that was that he didn't like the other students, like he didn't like this community that he was in, being this like biologist and like working in like this science field. He was just like didn't get any like love or admiration for it. Like he just didn't feel comfortable in it. And so that kind of drove him later to the screen, and kind of like, he didn't learn filmmaking in school, but it kind of showed him that that's not the path he wanted, and like thinking of why. But that's what kind of why I think he has such a unique way of seeing like flesh and the body, is because kind of was in it. He was like already kind of studying that to begin with. So that's pretty cool.
She's used to guts.
Yes. There is, like I said, I read a bunch of interviews with him, in one where the guy was just like, do you have like horrible nightmares? Like, why do you have so many like terrible things in your head? And essentially was just like, why is your imagination so horrifying? And he replied, my imagination is not full of horrors at all. This is a misunderstanding of what my movies are. First of all, I think all my movies are funny. Not everything in them is funny, but they are all full of humor. And second, it's not really my imagination. Anybody looking at the news on the internet or in a newspaper, there's horror there every day. Compared with that, my imagination is a wonderful playground. So I don't feel that my imagination is a place of horror at all, which is exactly what his films are. Like when you're thinking of it that way, it's like, yeah, it's grotesque, it's horrible, but it's also unrealistic. It's also obviously a commentary, and it is really funny in that it's very hokey and like, slapstick in a way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's not like you're not scared of it because you think it could happen or because like it seems real. You're scared of it because it's just like the thing that's in front of you. You're just like, I just didn't want to look at that. And then it's usually talking about like intense like things. There's an emotional situation always at hand. And like that's, I guess, what people might find scary about it. But I would agree that it's not like horror in the sense that I generally think of horror. I'm not like, oh my God, fear and nightmares. Like that's not what I'm thinking. I'm just like, oh God, this is just like a lot and a lot of emotions about it, and I kind of need it to go away. But also it's like really like, what is happening? So like that part's funny. I think that part, like the absurdity.
Oh yes.
If there was less of the specific images, I would think it was fucking hilarious. I would be losing my mind the entire time.
Yes.
I'd be like, what is, I would think it was so funny. It'd be like an Adult Swim, late night, like what is happening thing. But I think because of the specific ways of like morphing human parts with robot parts and like things that you just don't want to happen. Like you're just like,
well, and he's dealing with some pretty serious subject matter underneath it all too.
That's true.
But it is a fun experience, like just watching that together with you two. With it sometimes cutting out, and then with your questions being answered when you talk to it, so like funny. That was fun.
Yeah, and
it's trippy for sure.
Very trippy, and I think it's also it's not very subtle. Like because there's there's all this.
Like it was trying to be.
No, it's like all this crazy stuff is happening, and you have like this very grotesque imagery in uncomfortable kind of situations. But then meanwhile, like people are just literally just like, TV is bad for you. We're all slaves to the TV. Like we need it. It's cancerous in your brain. Or like the video games, like they're like, we don't know what reality is anymore, and everyone is desensitized. Like he's literally like,
cool with it.
He's just walking around
like,
with the moral of the film, just like, hey, here it is, and you're just like over here like. And then they're like, no, hey, wait, pay attention. This is what the theme is. And you're just like, I hate this. I just want to cry. And then you're like, also, I learned a lesson, a valuable one about TV while watching TV.
Yeah, I thought like that.
A visceral one.
It was just like funny. Like, I agree with that. He's just like blatantly, he's not subtle at all. He's just like, this is the thing. This is what's wrong. But also, look at this weird bug that kind of looks like it has a vagina. I don't really know what's happening. Pour poison into it, because that's a thing.
And then touch it.
And then touch it a bunch. And it's just like, it's saying a lot of really important stuff. But you just can't not look at this part where you're just so uncomfortable, where it's just like blatantly saying really important stuff and then like making you also look at like the worst thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess, oh my God, is that an epiphany?
Yeah.
So you know how your brain saves memories because they're traumatic?
Oh my God, David.
He wants us to save the messages he's giving us by traumatizing us with the images. So they
He
stick
is
with us
Videodrome.
forever.
They do.
He's
Yeah.
Videodrome.
Yo.
Because Videodrome, they said it starts off with the S and M.
God.
You had to have the violence.
My mind was just blown. I totally get him now. He's a genius. He's a genius. This is why you've never forgotten him, is because he says the most important
Videodromed
thing.
you.
He says the most important thing and then throws something so traumatic in front of you that you will never forget that most important thing because it's associated with something, oh my God, awful.
Yes.
Forever in my
Like
brain.
that horrible
He's
cockroach.
a genius.
That's so gross. It was like your wife is a spy and maybe isn't even human. Like
Probably
all
a
that was
bug,
so
maybe.
secondary because it was like meanwhile he's just like slowly fingering the wound of this talking bug creature that's not even talking from a mouth where it should be talking.
Kill him for some reason.
It's like kill everything.
was so
Your wife
funny.
is an alien, and he's
You
just
have
like,
to read it.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
I really do want to. If anything, it has definitely made me want to pick up all of these books. Like I'm like, need to read them.
I need a non-visual representation of this message,
Yeah.
Except the
please.
book doesn't have Judy Davis in it, so that's
That's
there you
true. I will say, I also am very surprised every time because, like, you know, and I had mentioned this to Deb before, was when we were watching eXisteZ, it has Jude Law, and he's really young, and then it has Jennifer Jason Leigh.
He's got great people in his films.
He has
Yeah.
like big names.
And
And,
where-
I'm just like, I remember seeing that and being like, what? That person's like really famous, and this movie is very strange. And I just wouldn't have put these two
How'd you get
together.
there? Jude, what are you
Catch
doing?
him while they're young. He has like good like insight for who's gonna get real famous later. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah, because
I want to hear interviews from all the actors that participated in his movies that are now like doing like pretty like mainstream bland movies. They're like pretty normal, like nothing to get like upset over. And just be like, what was it like just like being in eXisteZ? Or like any other
being
one of those.
murdered by a television program, Blondie.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It'd be so interesting to just hear like what motivated them wanting to do that, but then also how has their career
I'd
been
do it.
very different since?
I would do it.
I would imagine that he would be a good director to work with. I don't know why. I just get
think it'd
that
be fun.
impression.
Yeah, I think he has like a good vision. And he's not like trying to like upset anybody. I don't think in like the you're there type of sense. It's more so
Yeah.
it's artistic. If anyone's
Yeah.
working on it, they're thinking they're doing something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not a nothing film. It's like, oh God, this is a time. Like people are gonna remember this.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
like
Makes a statement.
there's like there are films where the directors are just horrible because they're trying to get like these reactions from their actors. Like you're thinking like The Shining, I forget the actress's name, but she was absolutely traumatized on set. Like she was like verbally assaulted, just like tormented, wasn't allowed to sleep. Like he drove her mad on purpose so that she would give that crazy performance. But she like hasn't really acted in anything since. Like she was like, I almost just like quit everything and just ran away forever because he was just absolutely traumatizing to her. It's I agree that I think he's probably really good on film, like behind the camera. Like he's probably very kind of positive and is probably just as excited as everyone else to see what happens and how it works,
Yeah,
and
I
like
feel
just
he's
to see
like,
people
pumped.
react
Just
naturally.
like, this is the thing that was in my brain and now it's real. Oh my God, everyone gets to experience this now.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
And he's like,
yes.
this is normal. I'm
Yes.
normal. This isn't horrifying. I'm funny. And everyone's
Learn
like,
my
okay, Dave,
reality.
Dave,
now.
it's fine. We're your friend.
We
Like,
accept
it's
you.
okay. Yeah. But Kat, tell us about specifically body horror films.
Well, I mean, honestly, after learning more about him, I feel like they bunched way too much into that category. Where like his were like really intentional and like smart, but then they also threw like Human Centipede in there. in that category.
I don't know what that's trying
Or
to
it's
tell
like,
you.
I don't know, it's human centipede. I'm sure there's like some guys like, I'm really smart and I know all about the really intellectual pieces of human centipede where they sew humans together from mouth to butt. Like, I don't, there's some learning to do there. There's a commentary on the world. Maybe it is. I don't want to know.
Well, I had never seen anything like his movies when I saw them. I mean, it reminded me of different things.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, like, what else is in that
I think they called him the
genre.
pioneer for a reason. I mean, he's the one who kind of started the idea. And then these people kind of took it and either respected where they took it or took it somewhere you just kind of didn't want it to go. So the idea is mostly that like anything involving your physical body, doing just like real messed up stuff with it. Stuff that doesn't seem normal or natural. Stuff that like you probably wouldn't even think to do with a body. And it's happening now. And you have to watch it on a TV. That's the gist of what was explained to me. Also, fun fact, David Cronenberg's son made a very famous, apparently, film. I don't know if it's actually very famous, but he's also in the body horror.
That was a antiviral.
Yeah. He also branched out and became a director of some scary body horror themed films.
I love when it's a generation thing. Like I love Stephen King, and then I love Joe Hill, who's his son, who's equally just as good at making horror short stories, and
I like
not
Joe Hill
even
better.
I enjoy even some of his stuff that aren't horror, like the stuff that he has that are just like about normal people, and I'm like, well, you're amazing. And then meanwhile, Steven's just like, kids do fucked up shit and have to be traumatized, and you're like, Steven. But that's a different time. But I like it when sons do just as well, or daughters. What's her name? Sophia. What's her name?
Coppola.
Yeah, she's great. I like her even more than her dad. So
yeah,
she's
intergenerational talents.
Woo, inherit it.
But maybe don't do body horror unless you're going to be really smart and intentional
good
about it.
And funny.
And funny. Don't be so serious.
But a lot of it, I mean, it seems like it's all about like mutilation, essentially, and things like you don't want to happen. And sometimes they're creative about why, and sometimes they're not. But the genre itself is kind of wrapped in all of those elements. So you have things like Human Centipede on there. Or one thing now I feel like we have to watch is Tusk. You said you've already seen it.
That's by Kevin Smith, isn't it? It's Kevin Smith.
Yes.
Which means we really do.
So it's called Tusk. It's about a man who's like a podcast person who is kidnapped and taken to some place far away. And then man turns him into a human walrus. That's the whole thing.
That's the thing.
Is that he makes a walrus skin out of human skin and then sews the man into it. And then he is a human walrus.
I am the walrus.
I don't know why.
Because he really likes the Beatles.
No, I need to know.
It's because he really loves the Beatles.
No, but
probably.
I need to know why that this film exists.
It got a lot of attention.
And that a person like who's famous, like Justin Long, is in a walrus now. Like I need to know.
And that's definitely body horror.
Like I looked up like top 50 films. It was number 1 at the top. Like in terms of just like what.
So what would you call like that movie Lobster?
What is Lobster?
Isn't that the name of it? Where they turn people into lobsters in the movie, but they never actually turn into a lobster. So it's kind of like the antibody horror. It's like it's just the idea of it, but it doesn't actually really happen, and you're supposed to believe it, even though it's not being shown to you.
That's like that episode of Twilight Zone with the people, and they're like, "You're so ugly, and we keep trying to fix you." And then they take the bandages off, and she just looks normal, like us, and everyone looks really gross, and they're like, "You're hideous." Yeah. It's like beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Totally gave it away right in the title. You were like, okay.
I know something's going to be weird about this. But it's just honestly what I got from it is that they've bracketed a lot of movies into this category because of the level of mutilation or like uncomfortableness you get with something that just shouldn't happen. Like turning people into something that shouldn't be, or
technology looking like people.
Yeah, technology melding together with people, like making something that is from human and making it very not human.
What
just
have
keep
we become?
Yes.
Yeah, very much like that. Or like, and then also like demonizing it. At least I noticed in Cronenberg's film is that it was always death to whatever.
Yeah.
And it was always like demonized whatever the other thing was. Whereas specifically they say demoness in eXisteZ.
But it's also like
I keep
both
saying the title
sides.
wrong?
eXisteZ?
It's eXisteZ.
Yeah.
It's not extends.
No, it's eXisteZ.
I think that's like a kind of.
It's like a
Yeah.
game title for existentialism.
Yeah.
Okay. I get
If
it.
existentialism was a video game,
Cronenberg, you got me again with your smarts.
Damn it,
All
Cronenberg.
right. But yeah,
Cronenberg.
creating monsters and weapons out of human body parts.
Yeah.
That's the gist.
It's
of
very
that.
cool. The whole time you're describing body horror, no one could see me, but I just was shaking my head the whole time because that's how I feel about it. It's just, I think because like what happens with the bodies were really uncomfortable, but I think what really got me in eXisteZ specifically is like the technology and how it's fleshy. And the same thing with
Yeah.
like the TV in Videodrome when it would start to move and then it took on like a flesh-like color. That's when that was like a line that was drawn for me. Because before it was like, okay, it's a little weird. But then as soon as it gets like a fleshy tone, I'm like, no, drop it. I'm done. Put it away.
Yeah.
because then it makes it a much more intimate relationship.
Yeah. It's just like that whole thing of like, what makes us human? Is it our skin? No, it's our brains, I think.
Yeah.
Or our soul or something. We'll get there.
Film. Yeah, films. Yeah, films. We watch some films. Now let's talk about those films. And all that spooky stuff. And all that spooky stuff.
Next category. Films.
Yeah, so we watched some movies by this guy.
As you know, we do sometimes.
So we watched Videodrome like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And
Or tried to.
yeah, it was giving
the
us
time.
a little
You're
bit of trouble.
signal interruption.
Yeah, it was definitely doing some weird stuff.
It took me way too long to realize that that was James Woods.
It said his name in the beginning.
I was not paying
And I
attention. And then
mentioned-
you made the ooh piece of candy joke and it still didn't hit me. And then he just said something and I was like, whoa, I didn't know that's what he looked like
He looks just
in
like
this young person time.
Yeah.
His hands were weird.
Well.
That's my only thing I'll say on that. Continue the rest of the
So-
commentary.
His
I
hands
did
were a
not
gun.
like his hands. They did too much with them.
So, Videodrome is a film from 1983 by Cronenberg, and it follows Max Wren, who is the executive of a TV station that is scandalous in that it
Yeah.
has programming that we wouldn't allow on our channel.
Yeah.
But
He
it's both,
still calls it civic.
yes, Civic TV. With you, what does it say? Your friend in the night or something, accompanying you
To
in
take
the
you
night.
to bed.
The synopsis says that when Max Wren acquires a different kind of show for his station, a sleazy cable TV programmer begins to see his life and the future of media spin out of control in a terrifying new reality.
Yeah, so it was a lot of hallucinations and, violence and sexualized violence and piercing ears while they're having sex for some reason. And
Before piercing was popular.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
It definitely, and when you're looking back at it, us looking at it now, it seems kind of like bizarre and kind of silly, whereas I can see how it was absurd back then because the whole premise is like, we're going to become desensitized, like we're going to have these crazy things on TV and people aren't going to react to them the way they
Signals
used
are
to.
going to cause brain tumors.
Yeah, there's all these things that are like he's obviously reacting to that part in
Playing
the
upon that
80s
fear,
when
yeah.
it was kind of picking up steam, but now it's like we have like Game of Thrones where the entire first season was just sex and violence. it was gratuitous. Like people complained because they're like, this is not at all like what it is. It got significantly better. There's actually like a storyline.
Yeah,
but
they were
was,
like, hey, HBO, we know that you like softcore porn, but can you chill a little?
There would just be like an important dialogue happening like on the right hand screen, and then on the left is just like two lesbian like prostitutes, and you're like, why? They have nothing to do with this scene. And people were like, this is stupid. So like he called it, and then that like,
well, and it wasn't titillating. Like, he didn't do it in a way where it was pornographic.
It wasn't titillating.
Yeah. Titillating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can say
like that word.
Yeah. Titillating.
Yeah.
We got one. It definitely was like, I can see how he saw us moving in a specific direction and then being like, look at how crazy life is going to get. And I mean, he's not that wrong.
Sex sells. This is what it's going to be. Sleaze is going to just be the norm. And it kind of is. Not in like the hands turning into hands and live action murder, I guess. That's not on the dark web.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned it that we like Videodrome is supposed to be this kind of like dark web version, like, you know, where it's a video that you would find and it's questionable whether or not it's real, and it very well could be. And that exists on the dark web. Like, you can find videos of people being murdered if you really were inclined to see that. And
I
it's
don't
like
recommend. Never seen one myself, but like also like don't
watch people
I'm pretty
murdered.
sure it's illegal. You have to like pay money to like get in there, and it's like still you go to jail for witnessing it. Yeah, so like bad times, don't do that. This was a movie though, however, about this idea and kind of envisioning where we would go.
And so
or lack thereof, I guess.
Dev definitely recommended this one specifically. We got to pick the other ones that we wanted to watch, but this was her choice. So why don't you tell us why this one is so important to you?
Well, as I said, you know, I had this idea of our society, you know, being of television, you know, and that landscape was really limited, you know, in my experience of what was on TV, and in just wanting to have a healthier relationship with the effect that media was having on me. You know, this was a little bit of a breakthrough, you know, just kind of like exploded my brain a little bit at that age, and just opened it up to like what the possibilities might be, you know, beyond what my experience had been. So it had a big impact on the way that I, you know, watched.
Yeah. Because it becomes very real, and then you become very aware of how you just take in technology and the media.
Yep, and I think it's like, I don't know, if all I ever had to watch, you were saying like all you had was like blandish TV, but then also like the news was violent, essentially, is what you were saying.
Yeah.
About your childhood.
And I didn't
like,
see myself on television. I didn't really see a representation. You know, it was like very limited view. And, you know, the kinds of messages that were being sent were very oppressive. And, you know, it was hard to find, I guess, you know, like what I was looking for. I mean, fortunately, I was exposed to, you know, a lot of like literature and art and music, you know, and movies. Like, my parents did not censor what we watched with movies. Like, we would go to the drive-in all the time, and we would see, you know, they wouldn't know what The Graduate was about, and we'd be in the back seat, you know, eating our popcorn, and just like, we'd be digging the music, you know, I don't know. Or like, that's where I saw, you know, in the drive-in, like the 2001 Space Odyssey, you know, in the back seat of a car, and like that had a major impact on me too, you know. So it wasn't like the only film, you know, that was affecting, you know, the way that I was leaning toward making media, and maybe being a part of, you know, changing the direction that media was going in term, you know, commercially. Like,
making people think instead of just like throwing blandness at them. I don't know.
Content.
Instead of subduing us.
Yeah. And then you said, so this one kind of like got you kind of hooked into him? Because then you've watched quite a few of his films. Like, what are some of your favorites and why?
Well, I think I saw Scanners first, and that was just like, it was so fun, because
Heads exploding,
that's just like, sometimes I would feel like my head was just going to explode, and then he would do it, right? So this is so gratifying.
Or just like too many people, too many thoughts. Brains can actually combust.
So true.
And the untapped power of human potential. I mean, really.
Yes. And there's so many of them. Yeah. It was very surprising that we hadn't seen him before.
Well, and I was skeptical too. It's like I wasn't buying in right away, like to a lot of stuff that was being sold to me, and so it was reaffirming that, this kind of the film after film, like I was just looking for the next one, that he was coming out with.
Yeah. So. See, what did he get into now?
Yeah.
The other film that we watched was eXisteZ, which we've mentioned a few times. So this is a film where a game designer on the run from assassins must play her latest virtual reality creation with a marketing trainee to determine if the game has been damaged. But it's much more than that.
It was very, very intense. I think the biggest thing with me in like our world now, seeing it now, I couldn't even imagine seeing it like when it first came out, but seeing it like now when virtual reality is like a thing, and like that is like stuff that people are so excited about. Like they're getting all buying all the virtual reality games, and like the whole thing of that movie is like, guys, though, your reality is going to be all skewed. You're not going to like real life anymore. And that's like, there's so many games where you have these fake lives.
You're
like,
not going to know if you really kill somebody.
Yeah, like it's honestly like these are real things that he was just like, yeah, that's gonna happen.
Yes,
but that's like a real thing now. It's a real thing.
Well, and I loved in that one how you think of virtual reality being like this clean, pristine, kind of antiseptic. What do you call it? Like
you're safe. It's not real.
You made it like.
But actually, you're inserting these weird
like
things
a car
into
mechanic.
you. Oh my god, it was so gross. And you know what really got me in that movie? Not to like go. I mean, he gets real graphic, so might as well, right? When the first scene where they're like hooking up, Jude Law and the lady from
Jennifer Jason Leigh
from that show we watch, Atypical. That when they were having sex, they weren't having sex like normal. They were having sex in the video ports, and it was like very upsetting for me. I was just like, no, that's not what they're doing. No, God. All right, we have to watch this rest of the way now. Oh my God. It was so upsetting. I was just like, do not put any part of you in there. Made it so sexual. Yeah. It was so weird. And I just remember that being very jarred by that. We don't have to include that in anything. I'm just saying.
No, I thought it was very important.
Yeah, it is upsetting. I think that's, I'm heartened that you were upset by that.
Yes.
I mean, it's not my biggest takeaway. There were a lot of really great parts of that movie that were really like smart and cool. And I think really are relevant today in games where literally you're killing people all the time, or you have a second reality, second life like that exists online, or, you get real into like Skyrim or World of Warcraft. Like those games become obsessive. I know I've played Skyrim for over 12 hours at a time because I have no self-control, and that's a reality.
Well, it's not.
And then you go back to real life.
Self-control. It's because you're human and they're designed to tap into that part of the human brain.
And then it's literally you go back into real life and you just want to go back home and play. Like that's a thing I've experienced. Or I'll be like at work. I'll be like, I just really want to play Grand Theft Auto. I have to be here.
Go kill somebody.
And like eventually it'll wear off and I'll go back to like normal life. But like it's a thing, and he's really smart. Like how long ago that movie was made? Was it really that long? Was that in the 80s as well?
I think so.
He just really called it.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting because it's virtual reality, but the technology looks like it's an umbilical cord, and it's like
giving you life,
yeah,
man.
that you're like feeding off of this thing, and it becomes a part of you. It's inserted into your spine in this little hole, which is what Kat was talking about earlier. And
I'm
there's
sorry,
this
there was
really
no context before I made that really intense comment, and it was very upsetting to me.
there's like a
Continue.
really gross part where Jude Law's character is like making sure hers is like fine or whatever, and then he licked it. And it was the worst
Oh my
thing
God,
I've
it
ever
was.
seen in my life.
Oh my God, yeah, no, it was really
It's
bad.
horrible. And then just set up for like whatever else happens in this film is okay. But it was also gross in the
It was the sexualization of this thing that was like for video games. It was very upsetting.
there's also the bone gun.
Yeah.
So that's something that wouldn't have, that's a gun, it's a weapon, but it's made of bones.
Like amphibian
And then it's like him when
grossness.
he's making it, and he's just like eating this
He's like,
disgusting
this is
fish.
disgusting, but I
And
can't
he
help
pulls out the
myself.
teeth, and she's like, "Are those yours?" And he's just like, "No, I have perfect teeth." And I was like, "You're British. That doesn't make sense."
I mean, have you seen Jude Law?
Like, what are you doing? But
He's flawless.
yeah, I just thought it was really. I thought it was a good choice for us to watch because we're gamers, and so we know what it's like to get hooked on something and spend hours and hours. Like, I mean, even just like I spent a lot of my youth just playing The Sims, which is just simulated normal people lives, more or less. And I would spend just hours in like entire weekends where me and my best friend would literally just be sitting next to each other on computers, just playing normal people who we have to make sure they eat and that they go to bed on time and that they went to work.
Loved The Sims.
But it was addicting and it was that boring. And it makes you think of like Surrogates with Bruce Willis.
I played Stardew Valley for 107 hours in the past like 4 months.
There's a game,
It's like
Second
a lot
Life.
of hours. I
that-
played Second Life.
Yeah, Second Life, where people literally just have this second life and they can be
It was
whatever
fun.
they want. And like people have gone like crazy over that. And like if you like, I think there was like a story in like a newspaper somewhere, it could be an urban legend, but that something happened in the game and they had lost like all their money or something. And they ended up like killing themselves in real life because it was just that traumatic to
Well,
them.
because that was supposed to be their good life.
Yeah, and it got messed up. It's that important.
Makes you wonder, what the positive potential could be, like if it wasn't just to tap into these lower impulses of humanity, It seems like it could be so much more.
Yeah.
But I'm so
techno-
convinced we're in the Matrix, so this is all a long-lasting game simulation that robots are just toying with us and we will wake up one day. Hopefully I won't. I'll just stay.
Okay.
I don't need that pill.
Well, I thought it was like interesting in eXisteZ, like with the car mechanic, Willem Dafoe, again, an actor we did not expect to
We're just
just
like, oh
see
God, that's him.
and be normal. But like how he was just like, oh, this like transformed my life, and she like did all this. But it's like when you're in the game, it's not very different. Like it's still a normal world, more or less. Like it's still limited. And there, he still had like stupid jobs, and just like, and then you're confined to talking to people who are stuck with predetermined phrases and responses. So it's like I was like,
why is this one better?
why do you want to go there?
Because I guess you can kill people and it has no consequences. People
does
like
it?
murder. I don't know.
Does it have consequences?
Well, yeah, we're not going to ruin the movie. We
We
do
don't
that all the
know.
time.
We don't even remember. Just okay. Imagine Inception, but with video games in
Yeah, no,
flesh.
that's actually what it was. It was like over and over again. They just kept
Yeah,
doing it.
they
Maybe
kept going down deeper to a new level of video game.
He came first, so the Inception guy stole it.
I mean, I believe it because I don't like him.
Yeah, there you go. That's our theory. Question us.
Yeah, bring it on. Yeah. Man, I feel like I mentioned all the things from that. That thing was gross.
It was very upsetting.
When he licked it, we were both like screaming. I don't think we made like inhumane noises.
There were so many parts of all of his movies, though, where it was like, I wasn't scared.
No.
That's
you're just
why, like, where I get it, it's like, I get why it's scary, but I don't think it's, like, horrific. So I get why he was like, this isn't horror. And he's, like, describing it. It's just, like, it's uncomfortable. It makes you feel something.
It's horrifying in a way.
But it's not, like, scary. Because by any point in any of these movies, I'm not like, this is real. Because, like, the things that are scary are the plot points, the actions.
Right.
Yes.
The scary things are, like, the realities.
Yeah, the actual things.
And
that
the
are happening.
horrifying things are the actions. Where it's like, I don't think...
Gross.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying
hilarious.
really smart things that are scary about the realities of our world and making us forever remember them by traumatizing our eyes.
Oh.
And you never are free.
And it's genius.
We're forever
Because you
locked
always
in that
remember things
cockroach's
that are
vagina.
hard or sad or, like, just upsetting. You remember those forever.
Vagina mouth. Disgusting. You kept touching it. That was the worst part. Like just let it go. Just leave it alone. And he was just like, and it was like very softly.
He's
It
just
was like,
talking.
put this poison in my mouth gash. And he's just like,
He's just saying words.
just kind of petting at it. I was like, why are you playing? I hated it so much.
Ugh.
I was just hiding. Like over
You have to watch that
I
again.
didn't even watch.
We
did
only
not.
watched like 10 minutes of it, if we're being real honest.
It just was like, it introduced the plot, and we were like, we have to leave. And then we put scanners on. And then the
Yeah.
head exploded, and I was like, that's fine, I can handle this.
You know, and I really,
Handle
one
heads
thing I really
exploding.
liked about scanners is like going on to like what you were saying about the power of like the mind, but then also just like the idea that like being in crowds is overwhelming, and like just seeing like and how he was like very much outcasted because he like couldn't deal with like all these people around him giving their thoughts to him. Like
Overstimulated.
he was overthinking all the time. He's overstimulated. But then also it's like people were sitting there in a crowd of people. We're anxious humans. Thinking everyone's talking about us. In this world, he's like actually hearing all of their like thoughts about him, and of course he gets upset. I just thought it was like really smart how he did that. It like really like played to like anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you have to read people's minds to think they're talking about you and to hear their imaginary
they're saying
thoughts and
about
like
you.
feel very overwhelmed by that. I get overwhelmed in crowds all the time.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. And I know I don't know if that's what he was trying to say, but that's what I liked about it. I related to that very much.
I think it's interesting in all, like, at least in the three full ones that we watched, was that you don't really know who the good guy and the bad guy is. Like you have
also
you
true,
have
yeah.
the main character, but I wouldn't ever constitute them as a protagonist because you don't really know them and you don't trust them, and they're not
'Cause you don't know
described
the
as
reality.
Yeah, you're
The
not
reality is
described as
different
a
each time.
reliable narrator. Like Max was like a
slob.
skis ball, yeah, who just like wanted to put crazy sex and violence on his TV.
Yeah, and he was such a like rude guy. Like he's grabbing all the girls' butts in his office. It was just
Disgusting.
really gross to me. I was just like, you need to stop it. Pull
Yeah.
guns out of your stomach and do the thing with the fire, and it's just, well, I'll be done with you.
Yeah,
I
and
didn't
then
like him
Jude
either.
Law, his character was bad because spoilers. Fast forward if you don't want to be spoiled. He like turns out to be like an assassin for a minute and kills her, but it was like, oh, this whole time I was,
they're
and she's
both
like, I knew,
assassins.
and then she is, and yeah, and it's like you just go in, and the same thing with like even with scanners, because it's like you have this company that's doing this, and then you have this company that's doing it, and now it's like, but which company is the good
that
one?
company
Because
or
they're
the good
also
company?
messing with people with the scanner ability, and they're messing with people with scanner ability, and then they send him to do it, and it's like, where are we going? Who am I rooting for? Because honestly, everyone should just be dead.
Yeah, I mean, literally every single movie we watched, my face was just like, what is happening? Because one, you have to relearn whatever the reality is. Don't just know. It's not what we are in to a T. There's like these new rules, these new things that you need to adjust to first before you can even kind of understand what's happening to like the person who's like set up as the victim. And then you don't even know what the rules are of the world. So you can't decide that they're the victim. There's so many things. We're like, no one's a victim. Everyone's terrible. We're all parasites on the world. We all are going to die. Just kidding. What?
Well, that is true, but I mean that we're all going to die, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we are parasites on the world.
Yeah.
We are
We're not
in
here.
a sack of flesh technology.
As long as my hand
That's
does
who we
not
are.
turn into a gun that I pull out of my stomach, I'm cool.
You know what?
I'm not
You
going to
live,
start
you learn.
eating poison for
You
bugs.
shoot.
I'm not going to start reading minds and exploding heads. Like, I got very few.
I'm not saying that I'm not
few
going to do
rules.
those things. I'm
Well,
just saying they haven't happened.
Can I just
yet.
not be included? That's more
No,
so
we
where
can't.
I'm at. Like,
'Cause I'm
don't
gonna come
explode
right out
my
the TV.
head. Don't pull guns out of my
I'm gonna
stomach.
taunt you.
Don't
Come
send
to
me to the
me.
Videodrome.
Come to Gaby.
disgusting.
Me and the
It's
TV.
worst. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like in ever a situation where like my reality comes into question, my response is not to be like, let me delve into that. It's to be like, I'm not having a good time right now. My mentalness is in question. My response to that is to not be here, to leave, because I will eventually revert back.
Feelings. Yeah, feelings. Yeah, I said feelings. Let's talk about feelings. Okay. And all that spooky stuff. I love spooky stuff.
All right. It's Your Girl Friday is positive. So if you liked the genre as a whole, / the movies, / David Cronenberg,
Yeah.
say it's My Girl Friday.
Yeah, because that was Max's like secretary lady, and she had a show.
Yeah, and she was
like,
just cute.
"It's Your Girl Friday.
And I remember that
You
like
can
being
catch me on
quoted later.
Wednesdays."
I like
it
how
was a little
just
thing.
misleading
That
that
was just his wake-up call.
Yeah, "It's Your Girl Friday." Loved it. Loved
Yeah,
it.
no, that part was cool. And I think they like quote that in other shows. So if we've watched, now I need to like follow up on that. So positive, it's My Girl Friday. Negative would be
Death to the Demoness.
Death to the Demoness.
My Girl Friday or Your Girl Friday?
Whichever you so choose.
Whose ever Fridays it is. TGI
So
Fridays.
if you're for it, Girl Friday or Your Girl Friday or whoever's Girl Friday.
Friday.
Friday. And then if you hated it,
Death to the Demoness.
Death to the Demoness. Because fuck that shit, get out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Which is from eXisteZ.
you can go first.
Well,
Deb.
the reason I'm here is because My Girl Friday.
Yes. Yes. Because he has impacted you in such a positive way, in a thrilling way. Yes. Thank you for sharing him with us.
Well, thank you for revisiting this with me.
Yeah, I felt like I've learned some stuff. I will say, it's not My Girl Friday. It's Death to that Demoness for like 80% of everything that I saw. Not because I didn't think it was like great, but because I just really wish that my eyes had not seen it. I think if the message was as it was, I mean, I wouldn't have remembered. It's so smart.
Yes.
I am like totally enthralled by him. I think he is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
Do I ever want to rewatch any of it? No. I'm traumatized enough. I totally get the message. I'm on board with what I'm sniffing what he's stepping in or picking up what he's putting down. Yeah, like I'm about it. Get it? Don't ever need to be re-exposed because it's drilled into my brain. It's forever in there.
Oh, okay.
I tried to get the people out of my brain. I drilled the thing in my head, and now I blow people's heads up with my mind.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it. How about you, Gabe?
Right on.
Yeah, I think for David Cronenberg himself, I'm Your Girl Friday because I think he's brilliant, and I like what he did with the place, which is my brain, and he renovated completely.
Yeah, it's all different now.
It's a whole different space. The feng shui is all over, but it was very intriguing, and each one was so different. And you like very unique and also complex and just purely entertaining. And I do think I'm going to try to watch Naked Lunch. I am. I'm just going to have to fast forward after the
so we can
cockroach.
go scream at the TV.
We have to fast
Let
forward.
me know.
And then screaming. But to some of the scenes and just like, although I enjoy feeling uncomfortable about some things, but a lot of it was like Death to the Demoness, and that I was just like, why? Especially mouth noises.
Yeah.
In this latest one, Videodrome. There's so much just like gross
sound,
body sounds, and I don't like it. Which is
Yeah, it was
why
hard.
it's like, why does Gabe edit this podcast where all it is mouth sounds? Gonna murder both of you.
Yes.
This episode's gonna end with you guys being murdered by me and my gun hand, my finger guns. Literally.
Pull it out of your stomach.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's not real.
My VHS tape of the past.
Yes.
The human VCR.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Kat, don't get married till your kids.
Yeah, Deb, don't get married though, your kids. And
Bye.
your heads will explode. Okay, cool. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Rewind.